Welcome back to the Holy Shift Podcast, episode number 10. A nice round number to end things. This is
Double
our
digits.
last episode for season 1. We will be back after a short break. Better than ever. I know all the haters all the fundies got excited, but we're not going anywhere, folks. So we put out a public service announcement that we were going to do a Q&A, and we surprisingly had more questions sent in than I anticipated. So we're going to dive into some listener questions today. Any comments before we get started, boys?
Let's get it started.
Yep. Alrighty.
So I think we're in the clear here. We didn't come up with this content, so no one can be mad at us for this episode.
This is from some
All right,
of the
let's
locals.
do it. Joe Allen is going to guide us through these questions.
Some of the locals.
All right. So the first question we got: do you think the way your beliefs have been formed and are now shifting is because of the demographic you grew up in? For instance, if you grew up in a more progressive church, do you feel like you maybe would have a better understanding of the Bible? Do you think how you were taught to perceive the Bible growing up affected you in any way?
Good question. You want to start it off?
Sure, yeah. Do I think
These are marinating.
yeah, we haven't prepared or anything, so we're just kind of hearing these questions and running with them. Do I think if I grew up I think if I grew up in a more progressive church, that I probably wouldn't have changed as much, because I don't know that I would have been as invested. A lot of the reasoning for okay, so for example, like me going to a King James only church, a real fundamentalistic King James only church at one point, is what caused me to then study like where our translations come from. You know, how do we get our manuscripts? Who translates this stuff? What are they translating from? And everything like that. And then that led to further study of the Bible. So growing up in a fundamentalist church is what caused me to be so serious about my faith, and then dig in that deeply. So if I grew up in a more progressive church, I don't think I would have understood the Bible better, because that was part of the question. I probably would have seen it differently, but I don't know that I ever would have taken it as serious. So I'd probably still just kind of be going with the flow, I guess. So I think growing up, the way I grew up definitely affected my thoughts today, for sure.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know. I think things would look a lot different. I'm pretty positive that I probably wouldn't have pursued ministry if I grew up in a progressive church from the get-go. Just because I doubt it would have been like the call of ministry would have been presented the same way. So I don't think I would have a better understanding of the Bible, because without that call to ministry, I probably wouldn't have, like you said, taken it as seriously. I think, though, that I would have arrived at the same place that I am now. I probably would have just got there much faster, or started there, because I consider myself a Christian, progressive. I guess some people would call me a progressive Christian. So yeah, I think that things would definitely look different had growing up in a different type church, in a non-fundamentalist church. But I think ultimately I guess there's no way to know for sure, but I feel like I would have landed in the same spot. Same.
I think I feel like I didn't never get it as deep as y'all, as far as, y'all become youth pastor and stuff like that. I feel like for me, I just feel like it probably would have been the same outcome. Um, uh, I wasn't really. I feel like I wasn't really fully invested um, the whole time. Anyway, uh, I mean, I think a lot of that was because of growing up the way I did, and was always in church from the time I can remember. Um, but I don't know. Not saying I was forced to go to church. I mean, obviously I was when I was younger, but I did have somewhat of a some leeway the older I got, especially when I got into high school, as far as like uh, Wednesday nights goes for sure. Um, I started going to a different church than the one I originally grew up in. Um, but I feel like for me, I'd still be here in the same. What are you gonna say, TJ?
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't think I would have ever, like, if we grew up in a much more progressive church, I don't think I would have had those fears and things.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've been to some progressive churches. You could call them progressive, I guess. Very contemporary, uh, you know, the mega churches that you see and stuff. I've been to churches like that where they were focused on positive things and more life coaching than trying to preach sermons and stuff. So I feel like if I would have grown up like that, I'll probably, yeah, I think I would, my mindset would be completely different than it is now because of the lack of fear. Like, there's not a lot of fear in those churches, and everything's more positive. It seems from the few times I've been, anyway, and the stuff I've read for
Yeah,
like purpose driven life and those more mega churches. So I think I would have had a much more positive experience, but it would not have been as mm, um, I don't as definitive as it has as my experience has been. I guess. Yeah. Um,
yeah. I think yeah. Once I moved up here and like we were going to elevation and stuff, I think that really helped a lot. I think, um, like you said, it there wasn't really any not they weren't really trying to scare you like the churches we were growing up in. I feel like
yeah.
so. All right, moving on.
Keep
Do
going.
you think heaven is a place or a state of being? Is it a physical place where you can touch and smell and hear, or is it more abstract than that?
I like that question.
So, okay. This is kind of a loaded question for me. So where I kind of stand, or I guess I don't really have a stance here, but my thoughts on heaven and hell is I don't know why we assume there is some reward and some punishment at the end of life. I think that's a big assumption. Now, is heaven real? That I think it sounds great. Sounds like a great place. I'd love for it to be real. I'd love to go there. Um, but where I'm so I don't have a stance. I'm just kind of I don't know what to think because there's no way to know. I don't know why we think there has to be some form of judgment and some reward and punishment for our lives. Um, that'll probably get me in trouble, but anyways, that's kind of where I'm at with that. I think, and we were even talking about this the other day and I never even thought of it from this perspective about just how heaven is described. It seems like a very man-made concept with streets of gold and no pain and no suffering and all of that. It just And I don't know, and I guess you could make the argument that's because God knows the desires of our hearts or whatever. So that's the paradise that He gives us. So, in conclusion of my heretical rant, I would love for heaven to be real. I think there's a lot of comfort in heaven. I mean, we've taught our kids about heaven, but ultimately, I'm not sure why there has to be some form of reward or punishment.
Yeah. I like this question because this is something that I meant to talk about when we did our hell episode, but we never did really discuss.
Haven't talked about heaven much.
We didn't talk about heaven. But there is the idea that heaven and hell are current experiences that we have while we're, alive on earth. So, we can create our own, hell in our life by making selfish decisions, or being cruel, or being greedy, or being hateful, or following those desires of the flesh that we're often taught about create more of a hell in our lives, whereas following love and kindness and gentleness and the fruit of the spirit type stuff is what creates a heaven for us. And I think there is some you can make that argument, I think, from scripture. There's a verse in John, I want to say it's towards the end of John, maybe like 17, 18. But it says, "This is eternal life, that you know God and you know Jesus." Eternal life is not streets of gold and living in heaven. It is, you can know eternal life now. You can have eternal life now, and that is knowing Christ. So I think that is I think you can make that argument, and I think there are scriptures that teach heaven as like a physical place, especially in Revelation. You get the whole description of everything. But that conversation Josh was talking about, we were having, I've been really obsessed with like Native American history and stuff, and I was reading about how whenever white men came, Europeans came over here. They were, constantly trying to deal with gold. They wanted to get gold out of the mountains, and they were trying to trade gold to the Indians, and the Native Americans had no interest in gold. And another thing they hated was how big the white man's house was. They felt like it was a waste of space. And it just made me think, like, they would have no interest in things like mansions or streets of gold or jewels and diamonds and all that. To them, that was just rocks and, wasted houses. So it made me think that our vision, our idea of heaven is suspiciously, very appealing to our earthly senses. I don't know. I can't think of the word. Appealing to kind of like our greed and our, things that we think are valuable, like gold and all that. So I think you can make an argument either way. I think there's verses that can be taken as there's a literal place and we're all going to go there, or that there is the kingdom is here.
What do you think?
What do I think? I don't know. I mean, I don't know how we can really know.
Yeah, that's where I'm at. I agree with everything you said. I think both are possible. I think there's possibilities for both, but I just don't think there's any way to know. I mean, I would love for heaven to be real.
Yeah,
be cool.
I agree with that too. And you said the Indians said that, right? About the white
Native Americans.
I mean,
maybe they were just jealous. But no, I don't know. I think this is something that I've struggled with probably, I would say, most of my life. It's just hard to, I guess, fathom that it's a real place. And it's like Josh said, it's made of. It seems like man-made, a man-made place. I mean, we have gold here. I don't really care about gold.
Yeah.
I don't want that to sound bad. I mean, it looks cool, but I don't care to. I don't even wear gold jewelry.
It only has value because people decided that it was valuable.
Yeah, it's just a
Yeah.
metal. Like,
Yeah.
uh, and they
it
say,
seems suspicious that God is, making that a focal point.
and they say the rivers are like milk and honey, right?
Yeah.
Flows with milk and honey.
What is it? Milk is
I'm kind of lactose intolerant anyway, so I don't.
that comes from cows and honey.
But
I mean, it's a strange thing.
yeah, I don't know. I've thought about that a lot though. You know what it's because you go to like Judgment House and stuff, and it's the last room you go in. It's really cold. I don't know. Yeah.
It's cold.
Got the harp music going.
Yeah.
Clouds.
I'm not really I wouldn't say I don't like to get up and sing and stuff either. So, but I was always brought up saying that's all we're going to be doing
yeah.
there.
That was the worst description of heaven. I remember we'd have like this really intense like worship service, and people, really feeling it, and they'd be like, "This is what heaven's going to be like for eternity." And I just remember like, man, this is not, this is not my idea of heaven.
Yeah. And like when I was growing up, it was in uh, a Southern Baptist where all they sang was old hymns. And I'm like, this is not what I want to do. But next question, if y'all ready to move on.
Yeah,
Let's do it.
Going.
Would you be more inclined to tithe if you knew the money was going to those in need versus paying people salaries? I know an instance where a church took all their tithe and paid employees at a restaurant that burnt down. So just curious if that changes your mind. And I'll go first on this one.
Okay.
Yes. I think I would look at it differently like that.
Mm-hmm.
Because I like helping people, and just like they said, the restaurant burnt down. It helped pay the employees while they're out of work. I'm 100% fine with that. And especially like these big churches where the pastors are making a lot of money. I mean, anybody who's making a good salary can get up there and just say anything. They're going to preach what the people want to hear. But yeah, I mean, I would be fine if I knew for sure it was going to needy families or something like that. I would be fine, giving money. That's just my take.
You good there?
As far as like tithing to me, the word at least still comes with that obligation.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I would be more inclined to tithe unless I was like a member. If I was a member of a church, I would give. I don't know if I would tithe. 10% is that's pretty a big ask. I mean, I think that's
I wouldn't put a
that's a
number on it for
significant
sure,
portion of a lot of people's.
or percentage.
Yeah, that's a significant portion of some people's income. But if I was presented with that instance to be able to help, people whose lives have been ruined like that, and a chance to reduce their suffering and bring a little peace of mind and a little help, definitely would be
I,
willing to give to that. I'm all about generosity. I think generosity is, I think it a lot of times it benefits us. It just makes us um, a happier person. I think that's just something ingrained in us, helping other people. Also, just it makes us feel better too. So I think generosity is an important part of being a good person, and I think we have built-in reward systems for helping people out like that. But I don't know if it would make me more inclined to tithe, um, because that was the specific question. Because I just don't, for one, I don't think tithing is biblical as far as the New Testament goes. I think that is it's. I don't think there's an. I think the argument that it is somehow still attached to the New Testament church is. I just don't. I don't find it very convincing. I think
let,
the New Testament completely does away with tithing along with all the rest of the Old Testament law.
let me rephrase what I said. If I was going to a church and they came, say, once a month, they like once a month they would have a new family or somebody like that that was in need, I would give to that. But as far as, like you said, putting a percentage on it or making it seem like, oh, you have to do this, you know, I want to give out of my own heart what I feel
Oh.
I should.
Yeah, so for me, I think that, and maybe I didn't do a great job clarifying this on the tithing episode. Like if you use the word tithing is just interchangeable with giving, if tithing to you is just giving to the church, like I have no issue with that. I don't think any of us have any issue with that. Because my frustration with tithing and uh, what the real hot button issue with me is when it's presented in a way that it's like do this or be cursed, or it's like this even part of salvation, like if you don't give this specific percentage to the church, then you're going to go to hell. Like that's my frustration. That's what I'm against. If you want to give 10%, if you want to use the word tithing interchangeable with giving or offering or whatever, I have no issue with that. I'm not even necessarily against giving to support the leaders of the church. It's just the command. I think generosity is a characteristic of a believer. It's not a command to a believer. And so, I mean, but certainly I think I would be more inclined to give if I knew 100% where, like for sure, where the money was going. I would absolutely be more inclined to give. Um, and I'm the church we attend now. I mean, I have the utmost respect and confidence in the leadership there that, uh, they're doing what they say they're going to do whenever. Because, like you were saying, they actually do a once a month thing. Like they pick an organization or a project or whatever, and uh, and one Sunday, everybody gives towards that.
Yeah. And this, I've heard people say, like, say, an example. Oh, so and so, if so and so would have tied this Sunday, they wouldn't have had that blowout. That's that's BS to me. That's no. Anyway,
Yeah, that's just superstition, in my
yeah,
opinion.
yeah. I don't want to get off on that, but all right. You may have an
You're
answer.
wrong.
You may have answered this on the pod, but what do you believe about women preachers? Women were the ones who found Jesus no longer in the tomb and went to tell that he had risen from the dead. Is that not preaching the gospel? Does that not make some of the first preachers women?
That's a good question. I guess.
Yeah, I don't have any. I mean, it says, "What do you believe about women preachers?" I don't have any problem with women preachers. Preach on, women. Um, I I think there are verses in the Bible that you have an issue with, but again, I'm coming from the perspective that I don't think the Bible says the same thing consistently. Um, I think books like the later books like the pastoral epistles like First Timothy and Titus, and even those, First and Second Peter, you know, I don't think that they should be, you know, because here's the thing: you get some things in the later epistles that you don't find in the earlier ones, and I think there is a legitimate case, if you read the scholarship on it, that those were probably not written by Paul, and definitely not written by Peter, because he didn't know Greek. I mean, he was a fisherman who spoke Aramaic. He clearly was not educated in Greek, and so I mean, people make the argument that he had someone write it for him, but um, I don't know. So anyway, my confidence in the Bible saying one thing consistently is not there. I just don't see it. So I think the people who make a case against women preachers have an argument, and I think the ones who make a case for women preachers have, just as good an argument. I have no problem with women preachers myself. Um, so I don't really have a dog in that fight, I guess.
Yes, same. I don't have an issue. Now, whenever I did at one point hold what's called a complementarian view, that was my Calvinist days. My Calvinistic is trying to be the next Matt Chandler, So, but even that, just thinking back on it, it's really really absurd and kind of arrogant for men to hold. But anyways, yeah, I don't think there's any issue with it. Just my own experience. I mean, I guess they're not senior pastors of a church, but the last staff that I was a part of, the majority of a large portion of the training and the mentorship came from women, and they're way better leaders and communicators than I would ever dream to be. And I think I said this on a previous episode, without the women, the organization would crumble, I think. So keep on, ladies.
Yep. I don't have an issue with it. I know when I was younger, like really young, I remember hearing a pastor say that women weren't supposed to be in leadership or anything like that. And so I was also at that time really young, like I said, and kind of gullible. I kind of believed everything I heard then. So when I did go to a church where a woman got up and preached, I thought it was kind of weird at first, but like I said in a previous episode, I think some of the best pastors I've heard speak have been women. So I have nothing against it. And like y'all said, preach on.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you've even mentioned you were a part of Elevation. I mean, Holly Furtick's one of the best
yep.
speakers there are.
Yep. This is a good one right here, I think. What is your opinion on cults? Are all churches cults? If not, what differentiates a cult from church? That's a good one.
Let me actually look up like the Webster definition of cult, so I'm not talking out my butt here. Someone else can go ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting. I've been watching a lot of cult documentaries lately. Yeah, I think when we think about cults, the first thought that comes to our mind is, we give a negative connotation to that word. We think of like a small, obscure group that is following some off the wall teaching that any normal person would be, just dumbfounded by it. It's like, why would you believe that? That's typically what we think about cults. And they often lead to people taking advantage of them. But I think our word, I think initially, I think you could read the definition.
I got it for you.
Go ahead and read the definition.
Here's the Oxford, the first definition in the Oxford Dictionary. A cult is a system of religious veneration, maybe I said that right, and devotion directed toward a particular figure or object.
Okay, so it's just, I mean, we even get our word culture from cult, right? So, like, the culture is the ways of the cult that we follow. So, like, you go to Iran, their culture is, reflective of their cult, which is Islam. Same for, like, Christian Europe at the time, or, the pagan Viking culture in Norway and Denmark. So, like, that's where we get our word for. So technically, I guess it's all a cult. A cult is, whatever our religious beliefs are. But the way we use the word today usually means something less mainstream, something more obscure.
Yeah, here's the second definition. A relatively small group of people having religious beliefs or practices regarded by others as strange or sinister.
Yeah.
So, I was about to read that.
Yeah, I think that's the definition we go with today. So I wouldn't consider all churches cults based on that. I think you have some pretty normal people who go to church.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And the definition of church is a building used for public Christian worship. But I don't know why they pointed out Christian. But anyway.
Churches, cults.
Anybody else got thoughts on that one?
Yeah, I guess it depends the meaning you're using of cult, like you said. I don't think.
Yeah. I think when people hear the word,
what differentiates a cult from church, that I would say that's good. That's actually a really good question. What differentiates a cult from church?
Yeah, I was gonna say cults probably have more of a negative impact, but
not necessarily.
Got some religious trauma I've been working through here,
So essentially, I mean, I guess, yeah, in that sense, every religion is its own cult, I would have to say, but
I mean,
less mainstream beliefs are typically what we think of.
If you type in the difference,
Christian cults.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
If you type in what's the difference.
We're talking over each other.
Little lag.
Here, let me finish real quick. There's churches that are just like, they have like a lead pastor that just runs the show. And, they're Christian churches. They may even be in a Baptist denomination or a Pentecostal denomination, but their little group is, thinks that they're the only ones who have it right. We would typically consider something like that a cult, more or less. Go ahead. Sorry.
No, you're good. Just a little lag. I mean, that's kind of what this says. I typed in what's the difference between a cult and a church. It just says cults almost always exclude themselves from legitimate Christian churches. Secular cult expert Margaret Singer writes, cults appear to be innovative and exclusive. But it says, in cult groups, one will often hear the language that their group is the only way to God, which is all churches say that, basically say that all different religions say that. So
cults usually also involve the leader trying to sleep with everyone, so that's a red flag there too.
Or at least manipulate everyone in some way. Have control. someone who wants a lot of control over your life, just question that. Don't be careful who you give power to in your life and authority like that.
Okay.
Yeah, keep it going.
How has your shift impacted your relationships with your wives? Who wants to take that one?
Getting personal. Why is everyone staring at me? No, so anyone who knows my wife knows that she's super conservative. She's still very active in her faith, so it's produced some good conversations. I've tried to be, and I think she would say I've done a decent job at being very respectful. I never want to try to convince her of anything. Um, that I want her to make her own decisions, and I have no problem with what she believes. I mean, I think it's been, uh, I think it's helped us grow. Honestly, it's really helped in how we communicate to each other. I think we better understand each other's point of views, how we see the world, in that regard. People, the whole, and we're not unequally yoked because I still think we believe essentially the same things.
According to
But
the
people
Bible, you're
always
not
think, "Oh,
either.
how are you going to raise your kids?" Yeah, how are you going to raise your kids and all this? It hasn't. Those issues are just non-existent, and I don't see how they would become existent in the future. Um, Her biggest struggle with the podcast or with my shifts, I guess, has been the negative attention that it's brought to me. We live in a small town, and I worked for probably two of the biggest, Christian organizations in our area, and so I have the reputation of the preacher guy, or whatever. And so, I'm sure this podcast came as a real shock to a lot of people, even though I'm the exact same person and I live my life the exact same way. Just some of the things probably shocked a lot of people. So it's just the negative side. She's very protective, so she doesn't like when people are negative towards me. So
Yeah, for me, it has not had. So, I've been thinking along these lines since like 2012, 2013, 2014 ish. It's when I really started having the biggest changes. Um, at that time, I remember, her kind of like, squinting at me, like, what are you saying? Like, if I would post something that seemed kind of, not on the fundamental line, a little more progressive, a little edgy or something, she would be like, "What, what are you thinking? Like, why are you posting that or saying that?" And then I kind of pulled back. I just kind of kept everything to myself and just played the game, but didn't I didn't want to influence her with what I was thinking because I knew her faith was very important, and just over time she kind of started. We went to college, and you start seeing the world differently a little bit, and we'd have conversations, and I'd notice in those conversations, like we have had a lot of like gay friends in our you know throughout our life. We've had conversations with them that have shifted the way we view you know homosexuality. We've had conversations with people who are not Christians. You just the more friends you make, that influences you. So she's come to her own conclusions, through just life experiences. And as she has shifted or changed her views as well, we've had more and more conversations that have not been the result of like me trying to push anything on her. So that has been very natural, been very easy. and has had, zero negative impact. We're just as happy today as we've ever been. I mean, like, it's a really the only thing it's done is open up conversations, I guess.
Yeah, I think Laney. I feel like whenever we first kind of officially met, we've known each other our whole lives, literally. Um, my mom taught at a daycare whenever her and Joanna were like 3 years old, and I would go there, during the summer. Um, so my dad knew her dad. Um, so anyway, but we didn't start dating until she was a senior in high school. But I feel like she was a little deeper into church. Uh, but once we got married, I guess she has her own story of how she shifted, and it's I'll let her tell that whenever if we have the girls on sometime. But I feel
Gonna have the
like
ladies on in season two.
We'll have a ladies episode.
yeah, I feel like she shifted quite a bit before I did, um, from what she tells me. Um, but I would say whenever we first started talking about it, as a like us three right here, we were texting one day, and I kind of just read her one of the texts just to see what she would say because I thought it was going to go the opposite, and so her response surprised me, and then we just got to talking ourselves, and from there I realized she was a little,
Farther
um,
along than you thought.
yeah, probably actually a little further ahead of me. um, but it's like I said, and we've been through, a lot. Um, but I feel like now we are closer. Like TJ said, I mean, we're closer than we ever have. You know, our relationship's just totally different um, than when we first got married, and you know, uh, for the best too. Um, but yeah, I mean, we can talk about everything, this every day. So we do our own little stuff with that.
Yeah. One of the huge pluses for me was dropping the whole "I'm the head of the household authority"
Yeah.
kind of thing. That I mean, that just freed things up a lot in our relationship. So um, and that took a big shift for me because I thought that is what the Bible taught. That's how we're going to live in this house, and it caused a lot of stress right to start with, a lot of unnecessary frustration. That's
Okay,
about it, though.
this next one it says, "What is your North Star?" It appears that it is your understanding. Does your North Star change as your understanding changes? Uh, I'm assuming this means this person is telling you their perspective, I guess. TJ?
Yeah, yeah,
Okay, so I'll read it.
yeah.
It
I'll
says,
I'll read this.
okay, you can read
I'll
it.
read this one.
All right.
So this one is actually this was an in-person question, and the guy who asked me it was actually a pastor, and he was trying to. He had listened to an episode or two, and his question is, So what is your North Star? And meaning, like, what is, I guess, the thing that you go to when you're feeling lost or unsure about the answers? He was saying, from the sound of it, our podcast that he's listened to, he said, it sounds like it appears that it's your understanding. And he said, so does your North Star change as your understanding changes? He said, mine does not. My understanding of the North Star might change, meaning the Bible is what he was referring to. His understanding of the Bible might change, but my North Star never changes. So he's saying, so he's essentially asking, like, what is it that you look to for direction? I am assuming. Um, he said that he looks to the Bible. He said it sounds like for us, it's our understanding of just, I guess, the world or life. Like, we depend on our understanding, whereas he depends on the Bible. So I've thought about this a lot ever since he's asked me this, and this might be the first time y'all have actually heard it. So you may not have any thoughts yet. But so my thoughts are, I was thinking about this today. If you're looking for a North Star, I guess so you're going somewhere. You're looking for direction in order to arrive at some destination. And I guess the way I look at life now, I still have a lot, I have principles, I have values, I have things I base my, life on. A lot of it's from the Bible. But just because I don't see the Bible as a North Star, I guess, that I can always look to, doesn't mean, um, what am I trying to say? Okay, so like I just said, a North Star assumes you're heading towards a destination. I don't view life as we're trying to get to we're not trying to arrive at a destination. I think John Michael Montgomery had it right when he said, life's a dance, you learn as you go. I don't think the point of life is to get somewhere so that we even need a North Star. I think the point of life is the experience, the dance. We're learning as we go, sometimes you lead, sometimes you follow, So that's it's not my favorite song, but he really nailed it, I think. Um, and that's kind of how I view life. I pull from a lot of different things. I learn as I go, and yeah, as my understanding changes, I guess the direction of my life can change. Um, there are some principles that I always hold to, but even I would say most of that has changed throughout my life. There's very little that has not shifted or changed as life has went on. And I think that's just the ebbs and flows of life. Um, I'm not trying to arrive at a destination. I'm just trying to wake up every morning and appreciate the moment and, live life. Kiss my kids, love my wife, help people at work, and that's my life.
Yeah, whenever you read that question, the first thing that came to my mind was, I don't think I have one. um, but I will say that one thing that my pastor always says is a question to ask yourself. I guess you could consider that a North Star. It's, what does love require? So in every situation, if I want to be a loving human being, what does it require for me to do? Um, and I ask myself that question a lot, because what I've come to learn is I'm a pretty selfish dude, and I have to constantly remind myself that it's not about me. Um, so I also came across an article once that talked about the meaning of life, and the title of the article was "The Meaning of Life, or the Purpose of Life is a Ham Sandwich." And I thought that was a very weird title, so I read it, and it's kind of what you were just saying, talking about owning the moment, living the moment, be there with your family, with your kids. He's like, right now, my wife's hungry. So my purpose is to satisfy her hunger. So the purpose of life is a ham sandwich. It's just a kind of way to view that, like own the moment. And so, yeah, I guess that would be my North Star, so to speak. What does love require? What does it take for me? Because the way you said it about life, it implies a destination. I guess would view the destination as a person that I want to try to become. And so I just constantly ask myself that question. And I also, like I've had, bouts with depression or whatever and been on medication. And I remember how I felt in those moments. And I was actually have no idea. I don't know how I got there. And so I like take from that experience. Like I don't want anybody else to feel the way that I felt. So like I goof off all the time. I try to make people laugh. Like it's really affected the way I interact with other people because I want people to enjoy life and never feel the way that I felt. And I just so that could be another North Star, I guess, is to be the light in someone's day. I don't know if any of that made sense, but there you go. That was off the top of my head.
Yeah, I mean, I would just add really quick. I do set goals. I do try to get to places. Um, I try to achieve things in life, but I think those just require you get your own little North Stars there. If I want to achieve this goal, if I want to lose 20 pounds, in 2 months, here's my North Star. Here's what I need to do. I need to exercise this amount, limit my calories, limit whatever. Same for like finances. We have financial goals, so we want to cut spending here, do that. So I have goals that we do try to achieve in life, but that's not the end all be all. The end all be all is, to. I like what you said about what does love require. I like thinking about that in this specific moment. My goal in life is to always be present in the moment. So I like that thought too. So how can I be a loving person in this moment? That's good. So.
Yeah, that's. I mean, when I read that question, like Josh said, I really didn't have an answer. I guess haven't really thought about it. But listening to y'all's like what you just said about being in, being present in the moment, and yeah, and just just the goals, what I have for my wife and my son. Sorry. Um, and then the end goal as far as setting myself up and my son in the future, when I'm not here anymore. Uh, Other than that, I mean, that's, I guess, all I really have on that. Um, this next one.
Okay.
If you don't believe all the Bible, how can you believe some of the Bible?
You just do it.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like any other book that you read. You can read a super good, like there's this really helpful book called Atomic Habits. It's got a lot of great ideas about how to change, make the changes you want to in life and achieve your goals and stuff. You may read that and you think some of this is good. I'm going to apply this to my life. Some of it, I could go without. Or any book that you read, um, you can take some of it that you think is good and leave some of it that you think is bad. So just do it.
Yeah, I think it's just like
Yeah.
anything else. And I think we even use the analogy you take the meat and leave the bones. Like, your life and things. I mean, we are to the point now, or as you gain life experience and you take in new knowledge, like how it's gonna apply, how it's gonna work out in real life, and you just do it.
So I have heard this. Okay, so there's this idea. I've heard this, and people think like this. Here's the Bible. They think
First Bible I ever had with my name on it.
they think there's only two options. I've actually seen somebody talk about this. They think you can either be under the Bible, under its authority, and the Bible is over your entire life, or you can either be standing on the Bible in judgment. So those are the only two options. But that is not the only two options. That's a ridiculously simplistic, metaphor. I think the right approach is to be sitting in front of the Bible, trying to understand it. Like you don't have to be under its authority or standing over it in judgment. You can be sitting with it open, taking in what it says, digesting what it says, thinking about what it says. Uh, Everything in here is not true because there are parts of it that conflict with each other. So they can't be all true. You can't just say this is the truth whether you like it or not. Which part, right? I mean, we did a whole episode on errors in the Bible, and in that episode we didn't mention any scientific errors, any historical errors. Like there's so much, just something as simple as the Bible tells us that one day stars are going to crash into the earth. The people who wrote this didn't know what stars were, right? Our sun is an average sized star. If a star crashes into Earth is just one star is just going to obliterate Earth. So I mean, you think about something like that. Like you can't just say that everything in here is true, and I'm going to take it and then not question anything.
Yeah.
So I'm for the approach of you can read it, you can absorb the things that you think are going to make your life better. The stuff that doesn't sound right, like give strong drink to someone in poverty so they can get drunk and forget they're
Get
poor.
their poor.
That's a proverb,
Yeah.
right? I mean, that's terrible advice for somebody to just get wasted and forget their pain instead of actually trying to get out of it.
Yeah, we all. I mean, everyone is guilty of picking and choosing in the Bible. There's
You have
there's
to.
there's no way around it. So everybody does it.
Yeah. Y'all literally took the answers out of my mouth. I was going to say something, but you just kind of said it right there. It was for those comments on Facebook. Huh?
Keep rolling.
Well, I was just going to say, because I've seen people comment that the Bible is the inspired word of God. But yet and they say they believe everything in the Bible. But then I've also seen them say things that contradict that, as far as like I don't know, just picking and choosing like you said, but mainly saying the Old Testament's irrelevant now, which, whatever. But anyway.
I got you.
Maybe season 2 we'll start calling people out. Where is your faith in your belief system?
Where is faith in your belief system? Does that mean like What
So
role does faith have in my belief system?
yeah, so the guy who asked me this was we were talking about the Bible, and he was basically talking about like all the miracle stories, the virgin birth, the walking on water, Daniel in the lion's den, um, and then his main question was, so where does faith come into play in your life, in your belief system?
It's a good
Anybody?
one.
Yeah. um. So for me, our knowledge, there's limits to our knowledge. I think ultimately faith comes into play in my life. I believe that in the end, everything's going to be okay. And for some reason, people have a hard time with this. Uh, Man, people hate the idea that in the end, there's the potential that everybody and everything is going to be okay, that everything's going to be made right. Um, I don't know how that could happen. Um, it could be, the Bible says that Jesus is going to restore all things, the reconciliation of all things through Jesus. It could just be that, you know, lights are out and, everything's at fine. But my faith is that in the end, everything's going to be okay. I think we're here to live this life, you know, and get all we can out of the experience. And I don't think we have to fear the end. And that's where my faith comes in, I guess.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, and I've made the statement in a previous episode that faith doesn't make up for irresponsibility. So I think that all the information that you have and you make the best decisions that you can off of that, and you have faith that everything is going to work out how it's going to work, how it should. I mean, there's nothing else that you can do. Like I'm trying to think of an analogy. You've been sitting on these last few questions for a while, so you get to come off articulate and that you. But as someone who's just heard this question for the first time, um, yeah, I think that the aspect of faith comes into play that you just have to believe that you do the best you can, and then in the end, God, or whatever definition you attach to God, that it's gonna all pan out how you think. I literally was thinking, and we all keep saying this, I guess, just because we talk to each other so much about all this. But as soon as you started talking, I was like, I mean, I guess just that everything's going to work out is where faith comes in, and that's exactly what you said. So yeah, and people do have a hard time with that.
I don't, and
I'm
it's
not
kind
really
of
sure
frustrating
why. Yeah,
because like there's so much. Life is full of suffering. There's so much suffering in life, and it goes across the. Some people live miserable lives, just terrible lives, from the moment they're born to the moment they die. They're just suffering is all they know. Some people live fairly good lives. They grow up. Maybe their family's wealthy. Maybe they're in a loving home. They go to a good school. They get a job they love, and they retire to Florida and play golf until the end of their life. But regardless, I think in the end, everything is going to be okay. I think all will be well in some form or fashion. And that's my faith.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. I don't want to say I keep, agreeing with y'all because y'all are giving all the answers, but uh,
I mean, I think that we are pretty all much on the same page. We talk to each other every day about all this. So.
yeah, yep. How is this supposed to help Christians And what if you lead someone away from Christ? I think if that person listens to us and it leads them away, I think they were already on their way out before they came to listen to this, for one.
Yeah, good point.
I would agree.
I'm assuming this was a Facebook comment. This is the podcast. So how is this podcast supposed to help
Yeah,
Christians?
I agree.
Um,
That's what they're talking about.
I don't think we've never said that the point of this podcast was to help Christians or hurt Christians, and we've never said that the point was to bring someone to Christ or lead someone away. Regardless of what happens, that's that individual's choice. Um, our goal in this podcast is to have conversations about our own experiences. And I think it can help. How is it supposed to help? It's not supposed to help, but it can. For example, we got a pastor who has contacted us, and he's wanted one of the episodes on a flash drive, and he is going through the episode with his church, and he said he's loving answering the questions. So he's using the Bible to answer the questions that we talked about on the podcast, and he said it's opened up a lot of conversations in his church that people questions that people he's realizing people have these questions that normally they wouldn't ask, and it's opened up some real raw conversation. So I think, and he's even told me himself that it's helped his faith because he's realized, hey, I need to be able to answer these questions. These are real questions. We're not just up here bashing and talking smack about the Bible or Christianity. We're asking real
Even though some of you
questions
think we are.
that yeah, we would have liked. These are questions that we would have liked to have had in church, So, I mean, that's fantastic to me. But regardless, uh, I don't think it. I don't think our conversations hurt or help. They're not intended to. They're just intended to, entertain. And if you want to join the discussion with your thoughts, that's fine. But we're just sharing our own experiences and our own thoughts.
Yeah, I think that, and I don't know if I've ever said this I think maybe in the first episode, like one of the big goals or desires that I had from the podcast was, regardless of where you are in your faith journey, that you take something from this. And I mean, we've gotten a lot of feedback from people who've reached out, and like, these things have happened in my life. I've started to doubt things. And it's just comforting to know that these questions are okay, these doubts are okay within my faith, or people are just diving in and becoming, little mini theologians because they want to try to prove us wrong so bad. So
That helps, yeah.
they're taking their Bible
It's a
study
good
to
one.
the next level, or whatever. Like those, like that, nothing excites me more than regardless of where you are on your faith, that something we've said, a question we've asked, or whatever, has sparked an interest and has just opened up your mind to think. I think we could all agree that the whole point was to get people to think for themselves. And so, even yesterday, in one of the questions that was sent in, they just talked about how they love following the podcast, that it's created a lot of great conversations in their marriage. And like, that's so exciting. Like, that's really cool that we get to, uh, have a little impact on somebody.
Yep. I didn't, up until a few weeks ago, I didn't realize how many Bible scholars we had in the area, But anyway, as far as, like y'all mentioned before, this podcast is about our individual journeys. We never once said we were coming in here to steer people away or lead people to Christ. Our first episode was literally our holy shift, our shift. But yeah, I mean, I think we answered that one pretty good. We're not here to lead someone away or to and fro.
Yeah, and we've said repeatedly that the conversations we're having can be had within Christianity, and your faith can be intact. I don't think your salvation is in question here. So if a conversation we're having or an episode or whatever leads someone away from Jesus, I think they're on their way out the door and they're looking for an excuse
Right.
to get out.
Yeah, and the people who like we've had a lot of good feedback, and it's just been nice, seeing people who we kind of knew thought the same way we did. They're just they don't really have a voice. They're too scared, because the community is so small. Um, you know, everybody grew up in the same church or the local churches around, and if you say something, I guess kind of how like what we're talking about, it you're kind of judged pretty good. So
Yeah, I've had a few conversations that have caught me off guard where I thought I was about to get God's put you on my heart. He's given me this word to set you back on the straight and narrow, and it's gone the opposite way. We're like, man, I love what you guys are doing. The questions you're asking, it helps me not feel so alone, or whatever.
yep.
It's pretty
Final
cool.
question. Oh,
Maybe I should.
go ahead.
Never mind. I'll keep that
No,
one
go
to
ahead.
myself. I was just gonna say, I think, and gosh, this is gonna cause some controversy, but I feel like that I have had more of a positive impact through this than I did my entire time in ministry.
Interesting.
Or at
That
least
says a
I've been
lot.
able to see more evidence of it.
Right. Cool.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. Like, we openly put out our thoughts and beliefs um, when we did agree with what I mean. If when nobody had a problem with us putting out our thoughts and beliefs and ideas publicly, day in and day out, when everyone agreed with us.
Yeah.
But if you start changing your mind a little bit and you say, hey, I said this publicly that I believe this, or I preached this, and now I'm saying, hey, I said that publicly. Why can't I say that I changed my mind publicly? Why? Uh, that's all we're doing is just saying, hey, we said these things publicly. Now we think this. Um, Take what you want from that. It shouldn't affect your faith. Um, but the hope is the conversation might get you thinking. So if it does, and then that helps you, that's a good thing. Um, but don't ever consider um, a season of doubt or of questioning as a bad thing. I mean, if what you care about is truth, like if you want to believe what's true, then these questions should only hurt. The thing about it is, like, you think about life, or like I think about teaching. If I want somebody to understand something, questions are a good thing. I want people to ask questions. Like if I'm teaching a lesson at school about commas, and the students start asking questions, to me that's a good thing because I want them to understand the answers. I want to get to um, you know what I'm trying to teach. The
And it
only time
shows they're
you
wanting
don't
to
want
learn and they're
people
learning.
to ask questions, right? So the only time you don't want people to ask questions is like when you're trying to hide something, right? Questions become a bad thing if you're trying to cover something up. Like I don't want my kids asking questions about Santa Claus, because I know Santa Claus is not real, and if they start asking questions, something might slip up.
Wait, he's
So
not?
questions are a bad thing
Hope my
if
kids are asleep.
Thanks. Questions are a bad thing if I'm, trying to hide the truth. But questions are a good thing if I want someone to understand the truth. And we just want to talk about what's true, and we care about what's true. So that's
Yeah.
why we're questioning things, and trying to figure out on a journey
I
for truth.
I think there's an issue whenever you are given something and told not to question it. For instance, the
Right? Yeah.
Bible.
Should raise some suspicions.
Yeah. I think everything should be questionable. Moving on.
Agreed.
Well,
This turned
last
out
and final
much better than I
question.
anticipated, to be honest with you.
Do what?
I said this has turned out much better than I anticipated, to be honest with you.
Yeah. All right. What has this experience been like for you all?
Bobby.
By experience, I mean making the podcast.
It has been a blast. I love hanging out with my bros, talking about this stuff. It's been therapeutic because Joanna's at. So this is a question that we can go back to the wife question. This is a question that Joanna asked me: is why do you feel the need? Like it's totally fine that your beliefs have changed. Why do you feel the need to tell people or to do it on this platform? And I don't know. It just the story I told about being genuine just always comes to my mind. I don't remember what episode that was. I think it was the ministry episode, or the why we are not in ministry anymore. But just had a conversation with someone. And they told me that they just felt like they could tell how genuine I was, and they made the statement to never lose that, and that's just always stuck with me. And so, just knowing that, I mean, the person people see me as has changed. I mean, if you polled the majority of people I graduated high school with, because I have contact with a couple of people, but the majority of them are going to tell you that I'm the Bible thumping Christian, that's going to probably judge them or whatever for how they live their life. And one, I just have I guess I care about what people think more than I let on. And I just want people to know the real me. I don't want to have to put on a face when I bump into someone from ministry days or whatever. I just want to be me, and I don't know if I understand. I feel like I can relate better. It's not on the same level, I guess, but people who feel like they have to suppress themselves for acceptance with their family or their community or whatever, for whatever reason, political, sexual orientation, whatever reason you have that you feel like you can't express yourself. I feel like I can relate with those people in a better way, and I understand what it's like to feel like you're not able to be yourself. And I just don't think that's a healthy way to live. And so this experience for me it's been really freeing and therapeutic to just kind of unload, so to speak. I might have got a little deeper than we anticipated, but
Yeah, it's been good for me. I don't. I'm too much of a people pleaser a lot of times too. So sometimes it makes me uncomfortable when people, look down on us or on me for something I might have said publicly on here. But at the same time, it's what I think, right? So if you want to know me, I mean, we've done 10 episodes that you can hear a lot of my thoughts and know what I really think. And I like the fact that I have had good conversations with people um, in, in real life, like face to face. We've had good conversations, and it's also improved my conversating skills. I think also like just getting to sit down and talk with you guys because I've always preferred texting to having real conversations because I felt like I always struggled with what I tried to say, if you recall our first attempt
I was gonna,
at recording.
I was gonna say maybe we should release the first attempt to record.
Man, I could not. I had a hard time having a conversation. So this has helped me in that regard a lot. So I've enjoyed it, and
now you're taking over whole episodes.
but I look forward to season 2, and we got a lot of great topics and some fun stuff planned. So it's been a good experience.
Yeah. Maybe in our little break here, we can put together a little bloopers video of our first couple episodes starting to record. But I think, like what Josh said, I think it's been very therapeutic for me. Obviously, I don't live back home anymore. I'm about 8 hours away.
Yeah, you don't feel the social pressure.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Well, I mean, speaking of that too, I used to always care what people thought. Growing up, I feel like I would get my feelings hurt a lot, or pretty easy. It was easy to hurt my feelings, even though I tried not showing it. I say over the last year, 2 maybe, I really don't care. I have 0 F's to give. I don't care what people think anymore. This is nice. I feel like coming here once a week and getting to talk is like a weight lifted off. You feel like sometimes when you have a lot to say, but you can't get it out, and then when you finally do, it's just like you just feel so free. I mean, that's how it feels for me coming in here, and it's something to look forward to, coming into the new week too. And it's just nice getting to hang out with y'all for an hour or so a week. But yeah, I mean, I don't really have any plans on this stopping. This has been really fun. So,
and can I just throw in the tidbit here, for a little context, a little understanding? TJ's talking about you can listen to the episodes and get to know what he thinks. Just a preface that we put very little prep time into this, so a lot of this is just on the spot. So there are 100% times that I wish I would have phrased something differently, or whatever. So take that for what it is. That just because I might only throw out a half thought or whatever doesn't mean I'm off the loony bin just yet. Was that people pleasing? Got to throw that preface in there.
I think every time I listen to it back, the episode, I'm like, man, I should have said something right there. Something came to mind. But like he said, we're basically going off the cuff. So,
all right. Well, that's all our questions. Thank you guys. Thanks everyone who participated. Shame on you for those of you that liked the post and didn't actually comment a question.
One more thing for the ones who don't like it, don't listen. That's all you have to do is don't listen. So,
Joellen is fired up, baby. Thank you guys so much. We'll be back and better than ever with season 2. Catch you guys later.